What's going on, everybody? We have the 13.1 meta snapshot because it is finally Friday. Let's just dive right into it because there's a lot to cover because the meta pretty much flipped on itself. So for the summary, the best comp by far is the 4 Ace Mech, followed by Kaisa Recon, Force Viego, Samira Mech, Duelist, and Camille RR. So there are pretty much 3 mech comps at the top. The 4 Ace one, Samira Mech, and Mech. Mech has just taken over everything. So if you guys remember anything from set 3, definitely something to look out for. A tier, we have Yummi. There's still like a semi-viable build with it, so we're keeping it there for now. It's not the mascot one, it's actually the Chinese one that emerged towards the end of the patch. Anima Squad Misfortune, Vertical Star Guardian, Spellslinger Tahliyah, these all took a big hit. Lulu Reroll, Sureshot Reroll, Threats, Soraka Admin, Gangplank Super, Zoe Reroll, Duelist Reroll, Super Draven, and Brawler Ashe. Super Draven I feel like is kind of sleeper, maybe it rises up a little bit more, but pretty much everything in the S tier is just like, you'll see at least one player of these every game. In the A tier, you might see 1 or 2 of these, and then maybe 1 B tier comp per game. That's essentially what's going on right now. B tier, we have Wukong, Talon, Kayle, Nasus, and Jax. So those are all the reroll comps. Maybe Jax deserves to be C tier, we'll have to see, but there's not many reasons to play him. It's like very low chance to see any of these comps. It's mainly just the S tier. If you guys want the more precise breakdown, such as what's S+, S-, A+, A- within the tiers, you have to head on over to my OnlyFans, which is right here, onlyfans.com/bunnymuffins. So before we get into how to play every single team composition, let's first hear a quick word from Mech Arena. Are you tired of playing Mecha Primes in the new set 8? Do you maybe want to play co-op or with some of your friends? That's where Mech Arena comes in. Mech Arena is a co-op game where you can play either 2v2 or 5v5, and these games can be played short gameplay sessions on your phone or longer ones with a controller. My favorite part is customizing your team, choosing your different pilots, choosing your different weapons based on the type of mech you are using. Some mechs are better at fighting, some are better at supporting, and some are better at tanking, and you get to pick and choose whichever one fits the right situation. On this specific map, there's a big fight in the middle checkpoint, so we need to go help our team and defend that one because on this map, it's really hard to get to the back end of the field. So a lot of times, I think a lot of matches here are decided based on who gets the most kills or just whoever controls the center, since it's really hard to get to the enemy team's closest checkpoint. On this champion, I'm able to heal teammates around in a circle, so it's really good on maps where all mechs are going to be at one location. If that's not enough for you, I want you guys to at least try out Mech Arena on mobile or PC using my personal link or this QR code, and when you do that, you'll get a free starter pack worth around $30, which includes Rocket Mortar 6, an amateur crate, and a skin to help kickstart your game. Feel free to get some of your friends playing as well, or find other people on the channel that also play in my Discord or in the comments below. I hope to see you guys in game, but for now, let's get back into the video. Alright, we are back. So let's go over the famous 4 Ace Mech comp. This is by far the strongest, but it's a little high roll because you need to hit 4 aces, right? Because you need to hit Mordekaiser. But the core is the same as pretty much all the other comps because the other S tier comps, guess what they were? They were Misfortune Mech and Samira Mech. So you can just play either of those, and then if you hit the Mordekaiser, just pivot into this one. You will most likely win the game if no one else is doing the same thing. But yeah, it's just super, super strong. If you have AD items, itemize your Samira. If you have AP items, itemize your Misfortune. But of course, if you get Mordekaiser too, he's just going to be dealing all the damage here. So pretty much all you need is just like 3 tank items on set. It doesn't really matter what they are. I prefer 1 healing item such as Redemption or Dragon Claw, and then you could go pretty much anything. As long as it does something tanky, it's going to be fine on him because he is just that broken. I feel like just slamming the items early is pretty much good enough. For Misfortune, you really just need the Spear of Shojin, and then any AP or damage item does well. For Samira, just Last Whisper, and then any AD or AS item will do. So how to play this, again, it's going to look a little weird. You're probably going to be playing the Samira Mech or the MF Mech first, and then going into this later on. So again, we write here, there's either the AD or the AP line, and there are a lot of item holders. That's always going to depend on what your early game boards look like, and again, if you're going AD or AP. But we'll probably get into more of those item holders in the other comps, so we'll get to learn more there. Frontline, you lean more towards defenders because you could play Wukong, and then you transition really easily into set. But you could do like brawlers, threats, or mascots if you have to, you know? But yeah, ideally you go to level 8 at 4-2 or 4-5 because we need to hit all these 4-cost units. Don't stress too much about Mordekaiser yet. You really just want to focus on getting set and then either Misfortune or Samira and then playing one of them until you get Mordekaiser later on. And then you just head on up and hopefully find before aces. Obviously, ace emblem is going to be really useful for you, so if you get that, you don't need to find Mordekaiser. But we also have a list of all the items for each of the champions down here if you need to get a little refresher, you know? For the augments, ace emblem, of course, is really good as we just discussed. Second win, amazing heal on set. Ascension, fights are long. Uplink's good if you need mana regen, and then like, yeah, there's... After that, there's a little bit of a drop-off. I think these are the best. Obviously, Clear Mind is incredibly good because you get to level 8 really quickly. Cluttered Mind, you still get there quickly, but it's a tiny bit slower. But yeah, that is pretty much it for that comp. Let's go on into the next one. We have Kaisa Recon. This is the tried and true. This is my best comp of the patch so far, just because I know how to play it really well. And yeah, it's pretty solid. You go for the same stuff as before. You just reroll for 3-star Kaisa, 3-star Rammus or Cho'Gath, and then Vayne if you magically hit her. But Vayne's very contested this patch, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. We have some gameplay videos here. I actually made like a 2-hour compilation only Kaisa, so you guys can check that out here if you have the spare time. Honestly, it plays the exact same as it did last patch. It's just like slightly weaker. You know, it's still a very strong comp. It was very broken before, but now it's just slightly weaker. So we'll skip over that for now because we already went over that. Force Viego. This was a good comp like long ago, but then they nerfed Viego hard, but now he is back in action because everything else got nerfed. So yeah, like his items are the same. You want Ionic Spark, then Jeweled Gauntlet, then a healing item. If you have a healing augment, then you could do triple damage. Tank items on Echo most likely. Leona is decent if you hit her. By the way, you can go 6 Renegade really easily if you just get 1 Spatula and hit Leona, but you don't really need to stress too much about that. You really just focus on Viego plus 1 other secondary carry to kind of help him out. There are a lot of flex spots here. The core down here, it's just 3 Renegade, 2 Oxforce, so you really just get that from 3 units. You could add Viego, Leona, Talon, and then just add in anyone else. Leona can also be Camille, obviously, and in the super early game, it's Sylas. But generally, it's Talon, Camille, Viego, and then once you get Leona, you could swap out Camille, and then you could just add any other 5 units to your team comp, whatever you're hitting. Whatever you're hitting or whatever you need. It's really, really flexible. So that's why this comp is pretty powerful, because you don't need to just tunnel into one comp. But for items, Ionic Spark is just like the most important item ever on Viego. After that, just any AP, then 1 healing item, and then you're good to go. Healing's really good in Oxforce because they get down to 1 HP, and then they ideally heal back up after they cast their ability. So that's why healing is super important on him. Onto the next build, we have Samira Mech, so very similar to what we just talked about. The core is really just 2 Sureshot and then 3 Mech, as we see down here. The rest of the units don't really matter. Like in this case, we have Galio, Alistar, and Urgot. Galio to help her cast a bit faster, Alistar to provide Oxforce to Aphelios, and then Urgot's just a very solid unit right now. But these 3 units can literally be anything. As long as they give somewhat of a tiny bit of help to your team or are just like a random legendary unit, you'll be fine. But you pretty much play this if you can't hit 4 aces and if you have very good Samira items, or maybe you have like, let's say a Sivir augment or something like that. You could play like 4 Sureshot with this, with the Sivir, and if you don't get Aphelios, just stay at 2 Sureshot. A lot of different things you can do down here. Last Whisper, 100% required. AD items and then sometimes you need healing on her. I found that like sometimes you get punched by the enemy sets even though you're in the back. Sometimes random misfortunes just hit her also, so like healing is pretty decent on her. You don't have to have it. Like triple damage is pretty good too, but I prefer like maybe like a tiny bit of healing, maybe like a Celestial Blessing 1 or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. You just play the same way as you did for the mech build, so you try to fast 8 and then roll down for set 2, Samira 2, or you do it on level 7 if you're kind of low. And that's pretty much all there is to it. We have some item recommendations down here, and then, yeah, like Endless Pizza is probably the best augment for this because it just heals your mech so much that it's just infinite frontline. And Sivir's also a sure shot. But yeah, probably like 4 sure shots good with this too. It really just depends what you're trying to play and what you're hitting that game. Onto the next build, Misfortune Mech. Again, very similar, except instead of the sure shots, you just run Misfortune plus any other unit. So you see we have like a chop suey of like different champions over here. You really like look at the core down here, MF plus Mech. So that's this one and then these 3 units. After that, anything goes. So Sejuani's pretty good because you get Brawler already. Fiddlesticks, he's just Fiddlesticks. Urgot, he's just Urgot. Like Belveth, I guess like this could be literally anyone, right? So you really can just play anything. You could even go like 5 mech, maybe put some items on your Leona or something like that. Really just anything goes here. You just need them to start. So as you roll down on level 8 or something, when you're trying to look for your MF2 or set 2, just pick up random stuff that's purple or orange. Because if you get those 2-star, you'll just throw them in, and more likely than not, they'll be pretty good for your team anyways. But yeah, very flexible comp, and then obviously if you get the 4 aces, go for the 4 ace build. We have some item holders over here for your AP items. Lulu, Kaisa, Ezreal, Lux are all pretty solid. And then that's pretty much all there is to it. Defender frontline for sure, because they're easier to play because you get the Wukong and you need them anyways. And just make sure you have a spare Wukong. That's about it. Or just itemize the other defenders such as like Poppy, Rel, or Riven. Another secondary carry you could use other than Bel'Veth would be something like Aurelion Soul. So if you get like a lot of AP items, 3 on MF and then 2 on your Aurelion Soul. But if you get like AD items, put them on Bel'Veth. Onto the next build we have is the Lasercorps Zed build. This is a new comp. I don't think we listed Lasercorps here before, but this is the 6 Lasercorps 2 Duelist comp. There are like a lot of variations of this, obviously. And of course, 9 Lasercorps is really, really good. We have a gameplay of that over here. If you click that on my website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta. And yeah, it's just very, very, very solid. 9 Lasercorps it's like an Exodia. You just need 2 spatulas, which is kind of hard to do. Here we just have all the Lasercorps units. So we have Renekton, Sedge, Yasuo, Mordekaiser, Zed, and Senna. I believe Ashe is the only one that's missing here. So you could play Ashe if you don't have Mordekaiser. Items on Zed, it's the same Zed as we've always been playing. Edge of Night, Runons, and then third item. I prefer Last Whisper. It helps him kill the tanks, but I wouldn't stress that much about it. Unlike Samira, who 100% requires Last Whisper, Last Whisper is just like a nice to have on Zed. It's by no means like required. The strongest things for this build though is honestly just the spatulas for 9 Lasercorps. So you pretty much just go into level 7, roll down for 6 Lasercorps. But if you get like the Lasercorps Crest, Heart, and Crown, this comp just unlocks itself into like limitless potential. We'll fill out more of this section during the week, so definitely stay tuned for that. Let's move on into the next build. We have Duelists. So this is just like the tried and true Duelist build from before. It's the same thing, you know. You don't really need to change anything you've been doing from before. You just go either like Vayne carry or Zed carry, depending on what items you have. Lockets, the most important thing though, you drop those on Nyla. You play 4 to 6 Duelists in stage 3, 6 to 8 in stage 4 and beyond. And yeah, that's really all there is to it. We have the 2-hour guide on this as well. And yeah, it's just the same thing as before. Just build lockets and then your team magically wins in the early and mid game, and then it falls off later on. But if you get Vayne 3, there's a chance. Onto the next build we have is Camille Reroll. This one's a little odd. Getting a good admin super important, and getting the Camille augment makes it like almost S tier in some cases. But it's really just about the admins if you're playing it without the augment. And there are some games where you just cannot play this comp because the admin just isn't working for you. But essentially all you have to do is reroll for Camille 3, and then none of the other units in your team matter that much. Like you play Renegade and whatnot, obviously, because it powers her up. But I'll be honest with you guys, like the rest of the team just doesn't really matter that much. You do need Hacker so that Camille jumps in, and that's why you run LeBlanc and Zoe. But that's really all there is to it. To play the reroll, you reroll at level 6, and then sometimes people level up to level 7 to kind of, if their board's stable, just to fit a couple more units in. But focus on items for Camille. So like Titan's Resolve, Bloodthirster, those are probably the 2 most important things. And then like IE is good for damage. Onto the next build we have are the A tiers. So Yumi's a little bit different now. Instead of relying on all the mascots, you actually just play Nyla. Nyla pops off pretty decently. It's not like as good as it was before, but as we saw at the top, we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 S tier comps, and like you probably see like 6 to 7 of these in every one of your games. So like the A tier and B tier, it's really deflated right now. You know how like inflation hit the economy pretty badly? Like inflation also hit the A and B tier, because with augments it makes like certain comps just completely accelerated, and if you don't get the augment, you know, it's not going to be that great. So that's why like there are a lot of A and B tier comps, because normally when I made the tier list maybe like 2 years ago, we had maybe 12 comps that were in the entire tier list. Now we have like 12 comps in one section of the tier list. So it's definitely a lot different from before. But yeah, don't play the mascot version. This one is still playable. The one with Nyla and Rel and Star Guardian. It came out from China before, and then like it kind of got adopted later on in the last part of the patch. But yeah, you just slow roll at level 6, Malphite 3, Yummi 3, Lee Sin 3, Rel 3. There's so many more things to roll for here, so it stabilizes much better. And then your cap is like Nyla 3. In the mascot version of Yummi, which I said that we should not play anymore, you used to roll at level 5 for Galio 3 and things like that, Nasus 3, but just don't even bother with that. Just only do it on level 6 because you just want like these units that we talked about before. But yeah, same items also, and then like some people like Redemption on Nyla. There are a couple of different ways to play this comp. I've seen a bunch of different people like itemize Malphite, some people itemize Nyla, some people don't even care about like the Yummi items as much. So lots of different ways to like fry a fish, you know? But onto the next build we have is the Misfortune Anima Squad. So this one, maybe it's being a little underrated right now, but the mech version is just a lot better. You generally go for like 3 to 5 Anima Squad, and you either go 5 with like all the cheap units, or you go 3 with like legendaries. Like we have here Nunu and Fiddlesticks, for example. You could do a duo carry with Misfortune and Vayne. So this comp definitely does like a lot of items. Riven's always going to be your main tank. And there is a chance to go for either Vayne or Riven 3. Vayne's a little ambitious because all the duelists are playing Vayne still, and then other people are playing Anima Squad as well. So sometimes you just have to default to like having Misfortune being your only carry, and then Vayne kind of just being like, sometimes she does stuff, sometimes she doesn't. That's why having like 3 Anima with the legendary sometimes is a little bit better. But this is best played obviously with an Anima Squad opener. And just make sure you have a Spear of Shojin on her. That's going to be the most important thing ever. Onto the next build we have is the Vertical Star Guardian. So Tahliyah got changed quite a bit. So essentially, like what happened is she can't really deal with all the set Ace comps. Somehow she was able to kill Jax, even though Jax has a lot of health, but she just cannot deal with the sets. So that's why she got bumped down a bunch. Like A tier is actually pretty low nowadays for like the inflation reason we talked about before. But like I would consider both these versions around the same place. The vertical one is obviously a lot cheaper, so you could play this in like stage 4, sometimes stage 5, and then pivot into the other one later on. But there's a lot of different things you could kind of do with these comps because there are many different versions of like standard Tahliyah, you know? They're like, there isn't really a standard Tahliyah. You just need to run like at least 4 Spellslinger and then at least 3 Star Guardian, and then anything goes after that. I guess the vertic one only has like 2 Spellslinger, but like she generates so much mana that she casts like a bunch of times. There are just so many ways. There are some people who play it with Gadget Teens. There's some people who play it with Prankster. There's some people who play it with like Soraka and Hearts. There are honestly like too many different variations to keep up with for Tahliyah that you just kind of need to flex into whatever you're kind of hitting that game. And of course, augments have a huge role to play into that as well. Next build we have is Lulu Reroll. This one got nerfed a lot, but I guess if you start the game with like a ton of Lulus, it's like kind of worth it. You just reroll at level 5, same thing as we did before. For all the comps that were covered in the previous patch, we're gonna kind of rush over them a little bit. Sureshot reroll. Senna reroll is bugged right now. Her first shot doesn't go off, but I looked at the data, it's still performing pretty solidly despite that, so you still could play Senna reroll. It's just not like, just be aware that the bug does exist. But for Senna, you just reroll level 7 and kind of just go from there. There's also like a threat version of this build where you just go for Senna plus threats. A couple different options you have for like what you play Senna with. Next build up we have is like a pure threat comp. You pretty much just play all the tanky threats, and then whoever you have items for, just itemize that. Ideally it's both Bel'Veth and Acel, but you know that doesn't always happen. So whatever you get items for, just make sure you get that unit 2-starred and then play around that. Next build up we have is Soraka Carry. Soraka's a lot weaker. There is a Soraka Mech version going around right now. I don't know if it's actually that good or if it's just like doing okay. The reason why Soraka's decent into the mech is because she's one of the few single target AP damage dealers, and she can also like hit the backline on her 3rd cast. And because tiers are not as contested as before, that's why some people are kind of going for it. But I feel like the MF carry and the Samira carry and the 4 Ace Mech are just much better than the Soraka version. But this is like the old Soraka carry that we saw from before. It's still playable, just not that great. You know, it's same as a Tahliyah. Like, it's playable, but you prefer having Misfortune. Gangplank supers, I wouldn't really play this. This is just like an old reroll comp. Zoe reroll, very bad matchup into set. So play this at your own risk. You'll probably beat the other comps because like Zoe's just good into those. But against set, she cannot kill set because she has horrible single target damage. She just spreads her little bubbles things, and she does like pseudo AoE, right? Because she casts so many times. But if she has to kill only one unit, she has a very hard time doing that. So I wouldn't recommend playing this, but I'm going to leave the comp up here. Maybe for some reason Set gets hotfixed or something like that, and then you guys need reference to a Zoe build. We'll have the instructions over here. Yasuo reroll, you need Siphoning Winds, but it got nerfed a bit. It went from 66% healing to 50% healing. Yeah, it hurts you quite a bit, but am I going to say it's not viable anymore? No, there's still some cases where you play it. It's just augment dependent and you need a bunch of Yasuos. Onto the next build we have is Draven reroll. This one's pretty popular right now. This one probably should be bumped a little higher on the list, but essentially it's just another mech build except you just use Draven. So a couple of different builds. You could do like the healing version, which we have here. You could also do the Rage Blade version. There are a lot of different options. Draven, it's just like you need the copies of Dravens before you go for this. If not, it's like really risky to do because it's hard to find the other mech units because everyone's playing mech. Even though like Wukong's a 1-cost unit, for example, and there are a lot of the copies in the pool, just the fact that like 4 other mech players exist in the game, it still means like sometimes you just like don't get it, you know? It just kind of happens that way. Like most games you will get the Wukong too, but it's just like a little contested right now, which is a little annoying. The good news is you could kind of flip this back onto them. Since you're re-rolling at level 6, you're going to see a lot of Wukongs, and sometimes you can just go for Wukong 3 and deny other people the Wukongs. So it just depends on what like perspective you're looking in at, but yeah, essentially just re-roll at level 6 for Draven 2 to stabilize first, and then slow roll for him to get him 3-starred. And then you could do the supers also. Ashe re-roll, not that great right now. You need like a lot of copies. I wouldn't really bother with this. I feel like the other comps are just a lot better right now. For the B tier, it's kind of the same thing. There are some Wukong reroll versions, but like, again, everyone's taking Wukong, so it's hard to get him to 3-star reliably. I'm not saying it's impossible to, but it's just like there are a lot of other things you could be doing with your life. Next build up we have is Talon reroll. So Talon's really popular in the Oxforce builds. Talon reroll specifically, I feel like he still needs Viego to help him carry. That's not to say like don't make Talon 3s if you have it available to you. It's just like not as strong as it looks like, you know, because sometimes for the 1-cost rerolls like Lulu, she actually kills a lot of stuff in the last patch. This patch not as much, but same thing with Talon. Like he does a bit of work, he bypasses the mech, it's all good and dandy, right? But you still need a secondary carry, so you still need to hit Viego too, and other people are going for that right now, and it makes it harder to hit once you like level up and after you slow rolled a bit. Maybe it changes though. We're going to be updating this meta snapshot next Friday as well, so definitely keep an eye out for that. Kayle reroll, I think this one is still viable. You just need the Kayle augment and then just reroll for her. She does okay into the mech. I'm not saying she's going to do well into it. No comp really does well into the mech. The only comp that does well into mech is having your own mech but stronger backline, and that's going to be it. But like Kayle, since she does do like a lot of like single target damage, she has a tiny bit of AoE. She still sometimes is able to kill it, but you just need like healing reduction so he doesn't heal up, you know? Nasus mascot, I wouldn't really play this, but it's up here if you guys want to check out the build. Maybe you get stacks on stacks early and you get like a lot of copies of Nasus. That's the only time I'd kind of go for this. Jax, yeah, just don't even bother with this. I wouldn't, at least, you know. It's had its day, but that's going to be pretty much it for the meta snapshot in terms of comps. Again, just a review. It's just mech everywhere, and there's not really anything we could really do about that. So maybe there is a counter. They nerfed Giant Slayer, which is very unfortunate. I said in my patch preview that they shouldn't have nerfed Giant Slayer, but they did anyways. And then one of the ways to deal with it, which is both like Guard Breaker is a good counter, and like combining them, sometimes you still can't kill the mech. So it's a little awkward in that sense. Maybe with Ascension you can, but yeah, I don't know. If anyone knows of ways to kill the mech, let me know down in the comments below, because I've been asking a lot of high-level players like how to deal with it, and then they're all just saying like just play it yourself but have a better backline. So that's really all there is to it today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Of course, if you want like what's S+, S-, A+, A-, etc., head on over here. And also thanks again to Mech Arena for sponsoring this video. And apart from that, I will see you all later. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe. And of course, smash that like button. Each like is an LP I gain before the next video.